Well, we're always excited this time of year to have a chance to go compete in the tournament. It's a fantastic event. I've always said, if you win this tournament, you've identified yourself as a very, very good basketball team. And we'll have to play well and play hard and see if we can keep advancing in the tournament. But we would love to win it, and we're going to go down there with the mindset to win it. And I think the players have had 2 good practices here before we head down this afternoon, so we're real excited and go down there ready to play.
Coach, what do you think this team has learned about itself down this closing stretch, these last 6 games?
Well, we'll find out. I think right now where my mind is, they certainly have shown an ability to change, and I think there was a lot of expectations placed on our team, and we really embraced those at the beginning of the season. And so when you go through some of the struggles that we went through as a coach, I was concerned that we wouldn't be able to change and make the necessary changes. And so I think it shows a lot about our players and their character and how hard they worked, and really, really proud of this group. So we've learned a lot, but I think that would be the biggest thing, is that it's been very easy for everyone to just say, hey, we've had injuries, or it's, the ball's not going in the basket, or we're suffering bad breaks and play the excuse game. And we just all got in a room, and people were honest, and people were also intent on listening and making the necessary changes. So it's been, from a coaching standpoint, very gratifying to see that happen. And no matter what happens from this point on, that shows that this group had, some special qualities about it.
Coach, in these 6 games, what have you noticed that's different about the offense and the defense than what it was when you were going through that win one, lose one here and there?
Well, 2 of our losses against Alabama and Georgia, our defense was probably, good enough. You would have thought that our defense was good enough to win. And I thought in those, players were really hoping someone else was going to, make a play to win it. I really thought the weight of the expectations and the gravity of the situation was at its greatest at those points in time, because, you go back and look at those games, we were not a team that was looking to make plays at that point in time. And then you flip that to, say, the Tennessee or the Texas A&M game, and it was the opposite. It was players just no fear and not worrying about mistakes and playing through, and I've thought this all along. Just our attitude is a lot different when we are playing at our best than when we're playing not to lose, or, oh my gosh, we're supposed to be so great and it's not going great, so now I'm down and discouraged. I think that's been the biggest thing for me, is that players having the the character to step up on some big moments, and a lot of stuff's on the line, and put all that aside and just play basketball. That's what they did in Knoxville and in College Station. So I'd say that's the biggest difference.
Matthew, 2 things. Have you been able to tell, because in a season of great highs and some not so highs, have you been able to tell beforehand that these things are coming? And if so, what's been your tell? And the other thing is, just for you emotionally, what's the challenge of a year like this for a coach?
Yeah. You know what, as I evaluate myself, I don't think I did a good job of seeing the signs or being able to tell, after 11-1, 11-0, and then the Duke loss, I sort of wrote off to, it was final exam week. They just came out a little bit flat, And, you know, you wish they hadn't, but they had really performed pretty well up to that point. So, you know, it was interesting. The Alabama game in Tuscaloosa, we didn't play great defense down there, but Alabama had sort of done that to us before. We'd won some 80 to 72 games before down there. So, you know, when we came out against Florida and just didn't really look like we were ready to go and ready to play, that sort of caught me off guard. And I thought that was the beginning of the snowball going down the hill. And so I didn't see that as a coach, and I need to learn from that. And I've worked really hard to try to go back and evaluate, you know, how we got to that spot. And so I grew a lot as a coach from that adversity. And it's been tough. You know, the thing that's tough on me emotionally is you want the players to succeed. I say this all the time. You just don't have it's hard to understand how hard these young women work. They show up in June, and they are 4 mornings a week up at 5:30 when the rest of their classmates are sleeping in the summer, and they just work so hard. And to have, you know, such a great start, and you're thinking #1 seed in the tournament, and you're just thinking everything's going to be great, and then you go through something like this, you feel bad for the players. You see how much pressure they're putting on themselves, and that was it was hard trying to figure all that out, but very gratifying on the back. I just can't tell you how proud I am of the team for doing what they did down the stretch. So it's been a tough regular season, but it's been one, I think, very valuable for us now as people, and certainly for us in the future.
A couple of times you've alluded to the fact that you sort of expected them to be one way and you've had to make some adjustments. Do you mean on the floor? Do you mean in the way that you're playing? And if so, what are the biggest adjustments you've had to make?
I couldn't get figured out is on the floor. You can't touch the offense, but the offense can touch you. And so we've had a struggle at guarding legally. And it just, and that's my fault for not figuring that out beforehand. But it did change. We go 11-0 against some really good teams, and then it sort of changed a little bit. And listen, I don't know. It's 3 people out there watching it who are trained professionals, and so they know more about it than I do. But we have not been able to be the defensive team that I thought we could be the way I wanted them to be that. Now, I've had to change, and they looked really good this morning in some defenses that, you know, you wouldn't see a typical Kentucky team playing, and so they're still good defenders, but I was slow to change there, and that's totally on me and my fault. And but the good news is we have time to see if we can play our best basketball, and we're going to have to play it differently than the way I set out to play this season. And that's another great lesson. You got to play. You got to figure out how this. And I say this, and people, I think, sort of dismiss this, but you got to start over every year, and you got to figure out how that team can play. And we just could not get the full court press going this year. And, you know, it's a poor job of me coaching, and it's a poor job of me adjusting to the way the game's being called. And I thought that was going to be a real weapon. So you look at all of our numbers there, that was a big part of our production. And, you know, we only turned people over. Well, I mean, it's still a pretty good number, about 18 times a game in conference. But for us, we were turning them over 23 and 24, so it's a significant change. So,
Did that epiphany come from one of those meetings that you've been talking about, or was that something that like hit you in the middle of the night? You know, you wake up
well, I just finally, after the South Carolina game, I just had to. Yeah, what would happen was we played great man-to-man against LSU, then we would not. You know, at Florida. But you had a week in between, and they looked good in practice, and I thought, you know, and we were so up and down. But the South Carolina game, you know, we got to do something different. We have to do something different when we see a team like that. And we may see them in Atlanta, and we have to play differently than we played out here and that's totally on me, and I have to get that done. And so a lot of it to me is on the court. These have been really good kids. They had their best academic semester in the fall. I mean, we don't have, people have bad days, and I have bad days, but we don't have anybody getting into trouble and, disrespecting people a whole lot. And I mean, we are not perfect, but these are good kids, and I think it's been a basketball situation, and, just a huge part of that is their leadership. And it's been a tough year.
One more thing on expectation. After the Elite Eight the last 2 years and all the talk about, well, when are you going to break through? Is this the year of the Final Four? Do you think this is the year that pressure kind of came to roost and maybe got a little too much at times?
Well, it's hard for me to know. It's possible. I tell you what, I think maybe this team didn't have their normal weapons available. All right. So you think about a kid like Samari Walker's been playing the way she's been playing here for 4 years. Castine Evans, all these kids have been playing a certain way, and the expectations were there. And what they've done over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, what's coming home to roost is that people are jacked up and ready to roll to play Kentucky because they knew it was going to be an absolute war, and you were going to, have to run for your life, and you may beat us, but it was going to be wild, in the game. And I've noticed this now. People are excited when they beat us, and that's something that I don't know whether we've done a bad job there or whether it's just the progress of our program, but I don't know that our kids understood what a win against them actually would be, and then they didn't have their regular bag of tricks there to dig themselves out of a hole, and we just lost some games that I didn't think we should lose, but people are so fired up. So that's credit to the people that have come before us and have laid that foundation, but I don't know that we particularly responded to that very well. And that's another lesson that I've learned, and is that I have to, you're told all the time as a coach, you can't assume things, you can't make assumptions, and I've heard that, and I just am afraid that maybe I assumed that everybody understood what the game meant to the other side, and I don't know that now looking back on it that I did a good job explaining that. So that's another lesson that they'll have explained to them next season. I think they understand now we've got to play real hard, but I hope that answered your question.
You mentioned that going through what you've gone through this year has been valuable for maybe the future, but talking about tournament play specifically, are there elements of this adversity that helps you over the next few weeks or so?
Yeah, I think we just need to go down with the attitude that we're just going to play together and we're going to play our best. It's a hard tournament to win. Only one team's going to win it, and not going down that we have to win the tournament to be a successful team. They've already shown me they're a team. I mean, you can't do what they've done, and you'll never be able to convince me that these kids aren't a team. So that's what I'm preaching to them right now. We're going to go down there, and we're going to try to be the tightest, most together team at the tournament, and we're not going to worry about anybody else, and we're just going to try to go out and have a very good game plan for Friday afternoon, whoever that is, and play our hearts out and see where that gets us. If that gets us to Saturday, that'll be great. If it doesn't, we will figure out what we need to do to be ready for the NCAA tournament. And we're playing it here in Memorial Coliseum, and we're excited about it. So that was my message to them this morning. We're gonna try to be the most together basketball team we can be down there, and we're going to play 40 minutes as hard as we can Friday afternoon and see where that leaves us.
Matthew, did the rules emphasis back in the summer when this was all talked about and announced, how did you think it would impact your team? I mean, sounds like it's been far more dramatic than you were expecting. How were you expecting the game to be called?
It's just typical of me. I'm just wildly optimistic about things, and I just think things are going to go great. And I just thought we were actually going to be an advantage, because I kept hearing people saying, hey, you got to back off, you got to back off. And so what we did is we worked so hard. We worked harder on our footwork and harder than we ever have, because we weren't going to change. We brought in officials before the year. They said, gosh, you guys look great. And so my only problem with it is that we are in legal guarding position, and the offense runs into you and pushes you off or runs over you, and it's a defensive foul. And so we don't have a lot of bullets in our gun right there as far as pressure, because the kids could still pressure, but now they get so concerned about it. And I thought we would have a better handle on that. And maybe I'm just totally off base and don't understand the rules, but I was very optimistic that we were still going to be able to play real extreme pressure defense and trap and press and all that. And we just haven't been able to do that, and so we're going to try to approach it from a different way going forward in the short period of time. It's not going to be radically changed, but it's different than what we've been doing, and we'll just see how that goes. But after the season, there's no question I've got to take a very, very strong look at how we play going forward. If this continues, it's going to impact my thought process dramatically.
I actually have two questions. The first one is based off what he's saying. In some ways, you've sort of mentioned that your freshmen play much better in a zone. So is that something you're taking a long, hard look at to get them on the floor more, is my first question. And then the second one is, we'll get to in a second. Just go ahead.
Okay, yeah, we're playing.
Sorry.
We're playing more zone, because we're playing some zone, and we used to not play no zone. So we're playing a lot more zone than us. But this morning, Lene Harper got a great steal in a zone look, and she's just more comfortable with that right now. And it's just she and Michaela both. The only way I can explain it, to me, it just seems like they're in an open stance, and they just can see more, and they can react more, and they can. And I think both of those players have worked very hard on their footwork. Both of those players are going to be very good man-to-man defenders before they leave Kentucky. I'm not concerned about it. I'm saying right now, at this moment in time, they're a little bit better and more productive and more disruptive as zone players. If they can play a little bit of zone, just helps them a little bit.
And the second question was, when somebody like Andy Landers on that teleconference the other day says, this is by far the most even, competitive I've ever seen the SEC, Melanie Balcom says there's no bottom tier anymore. Is that true in your mind this year? And what are you seeing from the SEC as far as this tournament? Just could it play out in tournament form too?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that, there's a good chance that the top 4 seeds hold, and that's who you see on Saturday. You could see that. But I think the Friday games will be wild. I think tonight's going to be 2 terrific games. I think they're going to be terrific games tonight. I really do. And I think for us, the Friday game's the toughest one, because the team has gotten to play the night before, and they're just sort of into it a little bit more. I think these Thursday games are going to be tough, because the 2 teams on Wednesday have had a chance to play. So you look at the scores and you look at who's beating who and what's happened and everything, it would suggest that any number of teams could emerge as a champion. And so it is, I would agree with them that it's very competitive, and it's going to be a good tournament.
With that said, I mean, how much does it help for you to have those extra days to kind of prepare for this? I mean, to see these teams. I mean, do you feel like that's been something of a reward from this stretch run that you have, as opposed to just having to go right into it, that you have a little bit more time to prepare and make those adjustments that you were discussing?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that. I mean, when you can play on Friday, that is really, really big. And those Friday games are tough, and sometimes you don't make it out of Friday. But I'm going to tell you now, if I had a chance to play Friday every time, that's the way to win the tournament. History suggests is to play on Friday. That'd be your first game. And when we were 4-4 and 5-5, I mean, we're looking at 8th or 10th or 14th. Well, I mean, there's just all sorts of things, sort of directions we could have gone. And even after we got beat so bad on Thursday night by South Carolina, and you're staring at a Texas A&M team that hadn't lost but twice, and you got to go on the road. I mean, this team could have gone in a number of different directions and landed in different spots. And for them to punch through and get to the top 4, it's big time, and it's a tremendous opportunity for them to win the tournament by getting to that Friday game being their first game. You still have to go out and play and beat somebody, but there's no doubt that's where you want to be in my mind.
As a follow-up, I guess in a general sense, why do you think tournaments can be so quirky where a team you can beat a team twice during the regular season, then you get to the tournament and it's a whole different ball game, and you might be in that situation too, having to face Florida?
Well, I think a lot of it's how the team's playing at a time. You know, it's a long time since you've played some of these teams, so you know it's how everybody's playing. It's how people are feeling that particular day, players and then other people too that are involved in the game. How all that happens to pan out, and it's just a lot of variables there. And then I think players react differently to a tournament atmosphere of, you know, it's maybe a different emotion when you lose this game, you're out. You know, I think that players react differently to that situation. So there's so many variables going on, and so little time to prepare. And so it makes it interesting, and I just think it's a great tournament. I love the SEC tournament. It would be a big deal for us to win it, I can tell you that. Thanks, everybody.